After my renting video, I got a wave of comments that all circled around the same fear. I love this idea, but I don't have a job anymore. I won't qualify. Won't I get stuck or worse, displaced? I want to walk you through exactly how this works because retired renters get approved for apartments every single day. You just have to know how to present yourself. Because the way landlords see income is not the way we think about income once we're living off our own investments. Hi, I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the actual mechanics of qualifying for a lease when you don't have a job, so that you can walk into an application with confidence instead of dread. Here's the thing about landlords and property managers. They aren't actually attached to the word job. What they're attached to is predictability. They want to know that the money is going to show up every single month for the life of that lease. A paycheck is just one way to prove that. It's not the only way though. And once you understand what they're really asking you, you can answer the question instead of panicking about it. When I filled out my first application after I stopped working, I froze at the line that said employer. For a second, I felt like a fraud, but I'd done my homework before I walked in, and instead of leaving it blank, I had all of my paperwork in order. And the leasing agent looked through it for a few seconds and said, "Oh, this is great. It's actually easier than most of our applicants." With that, my anxiety melted away. The first thing you want to do is consolidate proof of income, even if that income doesn't come from a job. Most landlords want to see gross monthly income that's about 3 times the rent. So if you're retired, gather up every passive income stream you have and make it easy for them to add up. And if you've been retired long enough to have filled out taxes as a retiree, your last year's tax returns has everything you need, such as Social Security, pensions, annuity, and if you have investments giving you dividend interest, or you're taking required minimum distributions from an IRA or 401k. Have all of that paperwork. But for those of us who retired early like me, who don't have a steady pension or a pile of guaranteed income yet, this is the part that nobody explained to me until I went looking for it myself. If your guaranteed income doesn't hit that 3 times rent threshold, you can use your liquid assets instead. You provide a few months of recent bank statements or brokerage statements showing healthy balances. And a lot of property managers, especially the bigger institutional ones managing apartment buildings, will use what's called asset to income calculation. And here's how the math actually works. Property managers will typically take your liquid assets and divide them by 36 months. That's their standard for being able to show what they call financial continuance. Basically, proving the money can support you for 3 years. So the formula is simple. Total liquid assets divided by 36 equals your theoretical monthly income. So let's put real numbers in. Say you're applying for a $2,000 a month apartment. At 3 times rent, that means they want to see $6,000 a month in income. If you have a 0 traditional income coming in, you'd need $216,000 in liquid assets sitting in accounts that they can verify. Divide that by 36 and you've landed exactly on the $6,000 a month. That's it. That's the whole equation. And what counts towards that number is broader than most people assume. Liquid brokerage accounts, regular savings, accessible retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks all typically count. You're not required to have a job. You're required to show the math. Most use this formula, but I did have one place ask for more verification. I usually just use my high-yield savings accounts when applying. I don't see the need to give them more information than they actually need. I asked them why they needed more, but they never disclosed their exact formula. I gave them one brokerage account statement, and that was enough. I just wanted to add that experience because I'm not sure all companies have the exact requirements. And markets like San Francisco and New York probably require a much higher level of assets. So that's the financial part. But there's a second part of this that matters just as much. And it's the part where you're actually choosing the right place to live, not just qualifying for it. Because qualifying for an apartment and choosing the right apartment for the next chapter of your life are completely different. And I think a lot of us get so focused on getting approved that we forget to slow down and actually evaluate the place itself. So here's how I go about it. Start with your non-negotiables before you ever tour a single unit. Are you bringing a pet? Do you need a ground floor unit, or does an elevator matter to you? What amenities actually matter and not just sound nice? And how close are you to a grocery store, medical care, and entertainment, if that's important to you? Next, check out the neighborhood at different times of the day, and definitely on a weekend. A street that can feel calm at 10 a.m. in the middle of the week can feel completely different at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. You want to see the full personality of a place. If you can, talk to current tenants, people in the lobby, people walking their dogs or getting their mail. They will tell you things that the leasing brochure and the agents won't. Get clear on the rules and how they are actually enforced, not just how they're written. A lot of buildings have lovely sounding policies on paper that nobody follows in practice, and you want to know which kind of building you're walking into. And this is one piece of advice I give to anyone asking about this. Know your escape clause before you sign anything. I like knowing exactly how I get out of a lease if it turns out that I don't like living there. Most of the time, that's 1 to 2 months of rent to break it early. Knowing that number going in means you're never trapped. Also pay attention to the small details when you tour. Is the place actually clean? Is there litter sitting around outside? And are people picking up after their dogs? Is there an odor in the hallway? Is the building secure, and do the exterior doors actually stay locked, or are they being propped open with a brick because someone got tired of buzzing people in? Those tiny details tell you a lot about how a building is actually managed. This isn't the right path for everyone. If you're retiring with very little in savings and you're relying almost entirely on Social Security with no cushion behind it, the asset to income math may not work in your favor. And that's worth knowing before you start touring places that you can't actually qualify for. And if you're in a market with extremely high rent relative to a typical retirement savings, you may need to widen your search to different neighborhoods or building types before this strategy works. None of that means renting is off the table. It just means your version of this process might take a little bit more patience and a little more creative searching. But if you're sitting there worried that renting without a paycheck means you'll be stuck or unwelcome or displaced from the rental market, the system has a built-in path for people like us. Tell me in the comments, are you currently renting in retirement or thinking about it? And if you've already been through this process yourself, share what worked for you. Thank you so much for watching.